If you're in a flight school going through training and you are struggling for whatever reason, I want you to understand that you are not alone, and this is a common thing. And by the way, it is normal to go through a phase of some difficulty during training, and sometimes it could prevent you from making progress, significant progress. So let's talk about this. I believe it's important because if you understand some of the things I'm going to share with you now and you're able to assess yourself critically, I'm sure you will take a lot of pointers from this video, and you will be able to save yourself some money, save yourself some time, some frustration, and you will see the progress you deserve. So let's get into it. By the way, if you find value in this one, don't forget to drop a like on the video. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So let's get into it. Now, one of the first things I'd like to start with is, if you're going to learn anything, right, we need to understand what that thing is, okay? So let's first of all define what learning is. Learning is really the change in behavior as a result of experience. So you experience something and your behavior changes. You have to understand that nobody was born to fly. Nobody came out flying an airplane naturally. You have to learn that skill. It's a learned skill. And the more you develop the skill, the better you become. And if you don't use the skill for a long time, you start to lose it as well. So, because there's so many factors that would impact that skill over time. Now, there are levels of learning. There are different styles of learning, on which we're going to touch on some of them today. But what are the key things, which, after doing my own gathering without making this video too long, what are the key things that would impact your ability to learn? Okay. Now, let's assume that you have a great instructor, okay, that teaches you well. Let's assume that you are in the right environment to learn in terms of the facility, the school, the environment, the environmental conditions are suitable for learning. We're going to assume those things for this, okay? Some of the things that will prevent you from learning can start with things like medical. Now, I know a lot of people may think medical, yes, as long as you have your class 1 medical, then, or your class 2 medical, your class 3 medical, then yeah, you should be fine. Every other thing, you should be able to fly. But that is not true, because there are so many undiagnosed conditions that could prevent you from being able to fly. And I'm not an aviation medical examiner, so I'm not going to act like I'm an expert, but here are some of these conditions that can prevent you from being able to learn to fly, okay? For example, dyslexia, all right, is one that could prevent you from learning to fly, all right? Another one is ADHD, all right? Now, understand that everyone in the world, nobody's perfect. Everyone has got to a certain degree, we all can sometimes experience symptoms of ADHD because maybe you're distracted, you didn't sleep well, right? That could make you lose attention on things for an extended period of time, or you may not be able to focus on something for an extended period of time. So the point here is, we're talking about these severe conditions in this case. I'm talking about severe conditions that people struggle with. This is undiagnosed. That happens quite often, especially in an industry where, a lot of people want to be able to fly. Everybody wants to fly, but, you don't do a thorough medical examination of all these other aspects. Because remember, when you go for your medical exam, they don't check for these things, naturally speaking. And hopefully, as you've gone through high school, you probably have done well managing some of these conditions, or at least you are aware of them and you know how to handle them well. But sometimes they go through the cracks and people struggle. Another one is anxiety disorder, right? We have people that freak out when they get in an airplane. Now, hopefully that is not you, because that is something that you just have to work on and get used to. And that could come from maybe past experiences, things that scared them in the past, traumatic experiences, the list go on. But we're not going to get into all of that, but I'm just trying to list some of them out. Another one is the autism spectrum disorder. All right. Like I said, sometimes some may have a certain level of disorder that isn't diagnosed. But the point here is, it could prevent your ability to learn. It can prevent you from learning. And another common one that happens a lot is air sickness. All right. People get sick a lot in the air, motion sickness. And this is something that you can't really tell you would experience until you start flight training. And then you start flight training and you start to struggle. And this has prevented some people from being able to fly. Now, are there things you can do? Absolutely. There are things you can do. You can always reach out to medical experts that will explain to you how you can prevent some of these conditions. And also maybe coping mechanisms that can help you to work on them. But it is important to understand that these are things that could potentially impact your ability to fly. And they are real, and they exist, and they are things that will prevent you from flying. But like I said, I'm not a medical expert, but I'm just here to point them out to you. And hopefully, these are things that you don't have to worry about. Now, the second thing that I want us to, that I will get into is your motivation. All right. You see, when you go through any flight training program, one of the key things that they always talk about is your motivation to learn. This is something that nobody can control. This is something that they don't sell motivation anywhere. You can't just go and buy it, if that makes sense, right? So it is something that you have to have. And there are some ways to get that motivation. But there are things that you need to keep in mind that will prevent you from being able to learn. Remember, that's the goal here. We need to be able to learn. Now, without adequate motivation in training, you will struggle to learn and assimilate information. Now, there are some things that will prevent you from being able to maintain a high level of motivation. And this is where we talk about the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think if you guys have done any science class, I'm sure they've talked about this, where you talk about physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, self-actualization. Now, it is important to mention that if any of this is amiss, you will struggle to maintain motivation, which will then prevent you from being able to learn. It sounds basic, but remember, if you haven't eaten, if you haven't rested, if you don't have a place to live, if you don't have enough money in your bank account to help you with training, you may struggle and not focus on the things that you're supposed to focus on, which will then prevent you from being able to, have the level of motivation required to achieve the ultimate goal of learning. Now, there are some things that you can do to help, right? If you set a goal, definitely that's something that can help you to maintain a level of motivation. So if you set a goal that you want to finish training by a certain time, being realistic with yourself, that can help you to maintain that target, being able to realize a dream of yours, right? That is something that can help you maintain a high level of motivation. And hopefully, if you have an instructor that helps you to set goals as well, that can help you to stay focused, and that will drive up your motivation, all right? And then with your motivation driven, or by being motivated, you're able to learn and, just stay focused on what you're trying to achieve. Another thing that can always help is having mentors, all right? Having a mentor can definitely help you, especially when you're struggling and you're losing motivation, you're losing focus. Having somebody you can talk to regain that motivation can help. So if it's a friend, your instructor, a leader somewhere that kind of has a good influence on you, can help you regain your motivation, and that will drive up your ability to learn. The next thing is competencies. If you have been following my channel for some time and you've been watching some of my videos on competencies, you would understand that some of the skills that are needed, or the abilities that you need to have as a competent pilot, are things that you need to possess already. And yes, you can develop those competencies, but it all starts with you having them first and understanding how to apply them. So there are 9 pilot competencies, but for this training phase that you are in, as when you're in flight school, you're about to start flight training, there are key, I would say about 4 or 5 competencies that you need to possess, okay? The first one will be communication, all right? Your ability to communicate well and effectively would help you, especially as you talk to your instructor, as you talk on the radio, as you understand instructions. These are things that you need to be able to use to succeed in training. Now, communication also can be worked on, by the way, just so you know. If you are somebody that speaks a second language, it can be a big reason why you're unable to learn, right? But if you can spend time, dedicate yourself to improving your communication skills or your language, okay, if that's the best way I can put it, like that's English language, which is required in the aviation industry, then you might be able to improve that communication skill, which will help you learn better, okay? Now, another thing I always recommend to people is watch aviation videos and see how they use aviation terms, especially like those air crash investigation and things like that, so that you can learn how they use aviation terms and how they communicate those terms between pilots and the likes. The next thing is, of course, practicing this with maybe a friend, an instructor, can also help you play like a scenario of you communicating or maybe getting a clearance or getting an instruction from an ATC. That's something that you can do to improve your communication as well, especially if it's related to the flying aspect, okay? The next thing is decision making, all right? Most of the time, most people get into flight school and, they haven't been put in positions where they have to make decisions that can be consequential, okay? So that alone can be intimidating for a lot of people. And that is where your instructor comes in and being able to teach you how to make safe decisions and assess risk and make decisions. And this is something that you have to be able to execute. And this is so important, because if you have to go on a solo flight and you have to execute certain decisions without an instructor, you want to be confident in that decision so that you can be safe. And an instructor is really the best person that will be able to assess you in this manner and teach you the skills to make safe decisions and the things to consider, especially when it comes to risk management and making safe decisions, okay? Next thing is situation and awareness, all right? Or situational awareness, either one. With situation or essay, that's the best way to put it. With your essay, this comes with practice and realizing that all the aspects of flying, whether it's you, the airplane, the environment, and just the condition that you're in, is always changing. And if you can stay on top of what is changing, then you are able to maintain the situational awareness. So this comes with practice as well, but having it and being able to maintain it, because some people struggle with this because of just the way their mind works, which I'm going to get to towards the end of this video. And that will be the next thing I'll be talking about, because it's so important to understand how you learn, and that would help you to improve the way you're taught and the way you retain information, which I'm going to get shortly. So anyway, the point here is this all comes down to the practical application of the skills you learn or you're being taught in school. Now, of course, same thing with workload management as well. This kind of prevents you from being able to learn. And if you are being rushed through a process or through a maneuver, you are probably not going to learn anything from it, because you feel like, you're just doing what you're being told, but you're not learning, you're not understanding it, you're not following why or getting the concepts that you need to get out of that process. All right, the last important aspect of your ability to learn comes down to your learning style. Now, learning styles differ. We have different types, which I'm going to cover shortly, but I want you to see this really quickly, which I'm going to share on the screen right now. This is my preferred learning style. When it comes to learning styles, understand that your goal is to know your learning style so that you can use it to your advantage. Now, understand that we all can be flexible depending on the condition, depending on the information and the type of activity we are trying to learn. But it is very vital that you focus on your own learning style first, especially if it's something you're struggling with. Focus on how you can assimilate that information using your learning style, and then maybe you can expand on trying other styles to help you gain better information or knowledge about it. So here is my learning style, for example. I am more on the sensing side, visual, sequential, and a reflective person. Now, you can be a mix of any of these things. And I'm not going to explain each of them, because if you're interested in it, check out the link below. I'm going to link it below as well. But it is important to see where your strengths lie. When it comes to learning styles, there are 4 main groups you can belong to. And you can sometimes find yourself in a mix of these groups, okay? But the first one is active/reflective. As an active learner, one of the things you find yourself doing is you try to do something with the information you learn. So that means you maybe practice it, you execute the maneuver, you try to repeat the process. Or if it's an information, you try to use that information for a purpose. And sometimes that can also mean being put in a group and you're trying to discuss that information so that you understand it, okay? That is an active learner right there. On the other hand, a reflective learner is somebody that likes to get that information and almost do nothing with it other than to process it quietly. So there are more of the people that try to get that information and sit with information and think about information for them to be able to retain that knowledge. Now, there are some things you can do to improve either of these groups, and I would link this article below. You can check it out. The next one is sensing and intuitive learner. Now, with this type of learning style, you have a lot of information, which I'm just going to read to you. Sensing learners tend to like learning facts. Intuitive learners, on the other hand, prefer discovering possibilities and relationships. Another fact about this type of people, sensing learners like solving problems by well-established methods and dislike complications and surprises, whereas the intuitive learners like innovation and dislike repetition. And as you can see, depending on what group you fall, your ability to assimilate information will differ, and that may be an area in which you need to think about depending on what group you belong to. The next one is sequential/global. The sequential and global learners are usually, a sequential learner, for example, likes to learn things in a linear manner. So that means, you want to learn the first thing before you move to the second thing, you move to the third thing, and it goes on like that. You learn that way in a more organized manner. On the other hand, a global learner can learn from the middle, right? Just pick 5 and 1 and 3, and somehow they understand the concept and the numbers over time. So the point here is they don't need things to be in a linear fashion for them to understand the information. And some people are like that, that's how they learn. Okay. The last one, which is the visual and verbal learner. Now, these are people that, I'm sure you guys have seen the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning style as well. It's kind of similar to this one, but with the visual learner, you like pictures, you like videos, you like, things like diagrams to help you understand concepts, whereas verbal learner are okay just closing their eyes, and they are almost like imaginative in a way. They can imagine the things in their minds and store information using sound. Now, depending on where you belong, all right, these concepts can either help you if you use them to your advantage, or they can work against you if you do not understand how they can impact your learning. So I've made this video. I hope that you have gained a lot of knowledge from this, and it has opened your eyes to possibilities of things you can do to improve your learning style. There's a link below. Take the test, see what style of learning you prefer, and use that to your advantage so that you can get success.